my visions, and it is for that I watch. That's why I'm preaching the way I'm preaching. The goal of my preaching is to purify, is to prepare a generation for a prophecy that I have seen. I've seen it. And the day that it happens, whether I'm dead or alive, you will remember that a preacher was raised for this one cause, this very reason. Satan will not win over our youth. It will never happen. I say it boldly, it won't happen. Our young girls will leave prostitute houses. Their hands will be raised. It is Jesus I serve. It's for him that I live. It's for him I will die. Those young girls are in the caves. They are coming. I tell you, they are coming. I've seen them. I've seen them. I've seen 15-year-olds marching on the streets of Warri like warriors. I've seen them.
Of Jesus, they didn't ask God, or they did not develop a hunger for prayer when they saw Jesus work a miracle. They didn't develop a hunger for prayer when they saw Jesus do anything supernatural. You read through scriptures all the times that Jesus did something supernatural, when he walked on water, when he healed the sick, when he opened blind eyes, when he raised the dead. None of those experiences drew such a hunger and such a desire from the disciples. So the question I always have is, what did they see when Jesus was praying that made them desire what he had? Because obviously they saw something attractive, they saw something unique, they saw something deep, they saw something beyond words. And it occurred to them that, oh, we've been around this man for so long and we've not learned how to do this thing. We've not learned how to have this kind of experience. So it was on the basis of Jesus's own praying altar. It was on the basis of Jesus's own experience in his prayer place that the Bible says that the disciples said unto him, Lord, teach us to pray. That request is like the cultured way of capturing their desire and their quest to have what Jesus had. Basically what they were saying is, Lord, teach us so that we can experience what you also experience in prayer. Because it's as they watched him pray. He was praying in a certain place. And they say, teach us to pray. That means that prayer is living. Prayer is living. Prayer is alive. The Bible says in a certain place that when Jesus prayed, the countenance of his face was altered. So it means that even in the place of prayer, such supernatural and spiritual transformations can occur, because prayer is living. Prayer is not dead activity. Prayer is not religious activity. Prayer is not just talking to God. You know the way they've defined prayer? In prayer you will talk to God, but prayer is beyond just talking to God. There's a level of intercourse, a level of intimacy, a level of interaction that happens in the place of praying that goes beyond just exchange of words. Prayer is living. And it was that life, it was the glow of that life, it was the fragrance of that incense that pulled the disciples, and they said, we want this thing. Second thing I need to say to you is that you will never have a living prayer altar if you do not desire one. And don't think that it is automatic to desire to pray because you are born again. It's not automatic. It's not an automatic consequence of the salvation experience. This is why you can have many people who are Christians and they run their Christianity outside of the dictates and the requirements of daily prayer. And you see, they can do that thing for 15 years, and when you meet them on the road, they will still pass off as Christians. You will still assume that they are believers, because obviously they might have the dress code, they might know the name of their denomination, they might know the rules of their denominational enclaves. They might look and act like believers, because it's not automatic that once you get born again, you will just desire the disciplines of prayer. Because prayer in itself is something that is not natural to the human being. Prayer is anti our structure, anti our expression. So it is something that you will have to earnestly desire to experience. True living praying is something that must begin to plague you. A desire for it must plague you. It must now be such a strong desire that nothing in this realm can satisfy. That means you will not be satisfied with prayer until you have started praying. That means even when you experience corporate prayer, corporate prayer can be sweet. You come to the corporate space, and the reason corporate prayer is sweet is that everybody brings their supply. So that's why it is easier to pray in the corporate space than in your private space. Because in the corporate space, everybody's supply is being brought and is generating a kind of energy in the atmosphere, so that even if you are the weakest, prayerless caricature of a creature, the prayer waves that will be available in the atmosphere, you can ride on it and look like a champion. That is why lives of prayer are not measured by public display. Your true praying condition is what you are when you are alone. That's the truth about your prayer life. That's the truth about your prayer life. So if you are going to have the kind of thing that Jesus had, that made prayer attractive, that his disciples now decided that, Kai, we want this thing. Can you imagine that they had been with Jesus so long? It is at this point that it occurred to them that, wait, there is something that John taught his own disciples. All this while, why is it that it never occurred to them? It's because you will never ever be initiated into the life of genuine priesthood in the place of prayer unless there is first of all desire. And you see, in the Christian space, there are many things that can capture your desire. If prayer does not become attractive to you as it was to the disciples, you may never truly know what it means to have a living prayer altar. You may never. And you see, this kind of thing that Jesus had, I'm hoping that in this teaching, either me or any of the pastors that will take sessions will be able to show you the prayer life of Jesus. And when you see the way Jesus prayed, if you see the kind of priority he gave to prayer, imagine after having such a successful crusade where you fed thousands of people, then you tell your disciples, get into a boat and go, leave me to clear the tables. What kind of leadership is that? And then when he finished clearing the tables, he now went to a corner to pray. He spent such a time with the Father that he did not know that day don't dark. It's when he came out of his prayer place, he now realized, I've spent so much time. And by that time, the Bible says that the boat had already gone far. So that miracle of him walking on the sea is not Jesus trying to prove a point that he could walk on water. You know, now we are teaching people how to levitate. Now we are teaching people that we are standing in pulpits and telling people that a Christian can go through walls. That there's a way you can mature in the things of the Spirit and you will no longer age. Even Jesus, he grew from when he was 1 to 30 years old. Jesus went from a boy to a 30-year-old. But you don't want to age. That we can do all kinds of strange things. We are teaching people from the pulpit. Jesus was not trying to prove a point about the supernatural life. That spectacular spectacular thing he did because it was a necessity. He saw them in the boat. He knew that the weather was contrary. He needed to go to them. If that was not necessary, Jesus would not have walked on water. And all of that is just an overflow of the fact that he was engrossed in his time with the Lord. I remember I was reading a story about Charles G. Finney. That Finney went into, he was so burdened with prayer, he woke up at 6 a.m. with a heavy burden for prayer. And there was a forest around his house, so he walked into that forest like a madman. You don't know, when prayer takes over your soul sometimes, until you pray, your soul will be agitated. The only release, the only ease you will feel is when you open your mouth and begin to pray in tongues. That's when your spirit, your soul will find ventilation. Prayer can become an affliction. It will be like a burden on your heart, like a yoke on your throat, that until you yield, nothing else will make sense. You will be talking anyhow, your brain will not be working until you go to be alone with the Lord. So Finney went into the forest, and then he says in his book that by the time he came out, it was already 10 p.m. in the night, and he felt that he had prayed but for a few hours. From 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. in the night, he felt that it was just for a few hours. He did not believe when he came out and he saw everywhere dark. It was that kind of experience they saw Jesus having. And they said, Master, teach us to pray. So the third thing is, once you have desire, the third thing about prayer is that prayer can be taught. Prayer and accurate praying can be taught. So it's on the basis of that we are trying to bring this perspective, because there are many things we talk about in the Christian space, and then by the time you begin to have one-on-one engagements with people, you now find out that they don't really know what they are saying. What is an altar? What is a prayer altar? Why is a prayer altar necessary? Before you start talking about how to build one, you should at least know what it is. Have you not been so? You should at least know what it is. You see, brethren, the necessity of prayer is such that if as a Christian you do not know how, or you do not have a prayer altar, you will find that you will consistently be suffering from a strange feeling of distance from God. You will always be feeling as if God is so far and cannot be reached. If you do not prioritize prayer, if you've not learned how to spend time alone with God, that sense of distance will always exist. You know why? Because there are two major issues that arise when the matters of prayer begin to come up. One, in prayer, it's not like me dealing with Jessica. In dealing with Jessica, I can see her physically, we can talk. But in prayer, when you are attempting to have relationships with God and go further with God, the first block you will have in your mind is that God is a spirit. God is a spirit. So the normal rules of engagement for relationships become fluid, in that sense that what we hold when I'm dealing with a mortal that I can see, I can feel, and I can touch, no longer holds, because the entity I am dealing with is what? Spirit. So the next thing becomes, how do I deal with a spirit? That is why the altar becomes necessary. The altar now becomes the platform where mortality can now find common ground with spirit. That is physical can now engage spiritual. That is humanity can now find divinity. That's what the altar is. The altar is what provides that common platform for that kind of intercourse to happen. Is the prayer altar that provides the leverage for you to invite the Spirit of God to come and engage your own spirit. This is why, even though Jesus was God, He still needed to withdraw himself at certain times, go to a place where he could be alone with the Father, and create an atmosphere where God could invade his space. Now, if you were around when we were dealing with the instruments of redemption, I said to you that God designed this realm in such a way that even himself cannot invade without the partnership of a man. It's not possible. So what the altar does is that it provides license for God. License for God. That's what the altar does. So you will never truly know how to receive the things that are freely given unto us. You will never know how to download the things that exist in God's realm until you have learned how to build a prayer altar. It is the prayer altar that creates a portal and a pathway for spiritual things to come to your level where you can access them. Is a prayer altar. If you don't have a prayer altar, God can be releasing things from his realm. There's no way you can handle it. There's no way you can decipher it. There's no way you can touch that reality. There's no way you can experience it. The altar is what provides license for things that are intangible, things that are immaterial, things that are in the realm of God to become things that you can connect with in the visible realm. Let me give you an example. Let me show you something. Give me Ephesians 3:18. Let's do 18 and 19. Ephesians 3:18 and 19. This one, our clock is not there. I don't want to. Ephesians 3:18 and 19. Okay, go to 17 so that it doesn't look like we're standing. That Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you being rooted and grounded in love, 18, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width and length and depth and height, yes, to know the love of Christ which passes knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. Now this is something that Paul is saying that is possible to the Christian, that you can know the love of Christ which passeth knowledge, and that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. Let me ask you now, if someone were to ask you now, are you filled with all the fullness of God? Do you have the boldness to be able to measure, I am filled halfway, I'm filled 70%, or I'm filled 100%? This is a reality that is available to every Christian. But I'm saying to you that these kind of realities, these kind of possibilities, what makes them accessible to you, that it now becomes your living reality, is that you have built an altar that creates a pathway in the spirit such that these kind of experiences can be yours. Let's read it in the Amplified, so you will see something. Give me Amplified. Give me this verse in Amplified, 19 Amplified. Now look, that you may really come to know. Look at what he puts in bracket. Practically, through what? Experience. For who? Yourselves. Practically. Now, what are you going to know? The love of Christ, which surpasses what? Men knowledge. What is men knowledge? Knowledge without experience. All right? That you may be filled through all your being unto all the fullness of God. What is the fullness of God? May have the richest measure of the what? Divine presence. Are you here? And become a body wholly filled and flooded with what? God himself. Are you seeing that? That reality, this experience that Paul is describing, and remember, this is Paul's burden in prayer for the Ephesian church. This experience is describing that you become wholly filled, that your body is flooded with God himself. You will not know this reality if you have not built an altar to trap his essence. Why? God is spirit. So if you are going to receive anything from him, it's going to be spiritual. The essence of it will be spirit. What I'm saying to you is, if you don't have a prayer altar, you are shortchanging yourself. There are many promises in scriptures. You will not be able to enter. You will not be able to enjoy your Christian life. Look at what he says here. He said that you may have the richest measure of the divine presence. Oh my God, Talivanakai. The richest measure of the divine presence. Like I was saying on Sunday, when you become a mobile router, anywhere you enter, you afflict the place with the fragrance of heaven. We are supposed to be merchants. That the merchandise that we give to men is divine presence. Divine presence. But you see, the average Christian is satisfied with just attending church, enjoying service. He doesn't know that there is more. He's a container, he's a vessel. He's supposed to be like a sponge. Have you seen a sponge before? A sponge soaks in water. When you squeeze it, the water comes out of it. When men touch you, they should touch God. When they hear you, they should hear God. When they see you, they should literally see God. Because you should have the richest measure of what? Divine presence. If there is no place that you have created for that intercourse between physical and spiritual to happen, you will not know this experience. When the Bible says that eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, speaking about the mysteries of the wisdom of God that were hidden from the beginning of the age, saying that no man can know the things that are in the heart of the man except the spirit of the man. Likewise, no man knows the things that are in the heart of God except the spirit of God. And the spirit of God searcheth all things, even yea, the deep things of God. Those kind of deep things that exist in the realm of God, you qualify yourself for such engagements and experiences when you have built an altar. Are we together to that point? So what is an altar? Before we talk about what is a prayer altar, let us go to the Bible to see what an altar is. So what I like to do is that I go to the Bible to find out where the word was used the first time. And the first place I find is in Genesis chapter 8. Genesis chapter 8 and verse 20. Is somebody getting blessed? Genesis chapter 8 and verse 20. Go back to New King James. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Number 2, next verse 21. And the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. So go back to 20. He built an altar to the Lord. So there are two people in this equation. You have Noah and you have who? The Lord. So an altar, like we've been trying to say, even when Ovi was leading prayer, an altar is a place of engagement, a place of intimacy and relationship between divinity and humanity. That's what an altar is. So you see, he built an altar to the Lord. So even in the negative supernatural, altars are built. So you will have a human being who erects a platform, and the whole idea of that platform is to provide legal grounds for engagement between mortal and spirit. So somebody in a territory can build an altar to Oloku. Somebody in a territory can build an altar to Shango. Somebody can build an altar to all kinds of strange demons. Because what altars are is that it provides a legal premise for physical and spiritual, divine and human, to find common ground and engagement. That's number one. Number two, he took of every clean animal of the bird, of every clean animal and every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Number 2, an altar is a place of sacrifice. A place of sacrifice. An altar is a place of sacrifice. That means an altar is useless if there is not a consistent sacrifice on it. An altar is not just to fill space and time. It is there to provide the legal premise. Then, once the legal premise has been established for the spirit to be able to invade the realm of men, such that there's common ground for intimacy and intercourse, then the spirit will begin to demand sacrifices. The one to whom the altar has been erected will now begin to demand sacrifices, and the one who erected the altar will be obligated by covenant to provide those sacrifices. That's why even in the negative supernatural, when you find a priest of darkness, he knows or she knows the demands that the strange spirit has put upon her, and she does everything to keep it. That altar will demand sacrifices. So number 2, the altar is a place of sacrifice. Number 3, go to the next verse. Go to the next verse. And the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground for man's sake. Number 3, the altar is the place for seeking supernatural and divine favor and assistance. Supernatural and divine favor and assistance. Now, in ancient Israel, if you read through scriptures, if you're a student of the Bible, you will understand that when the Bible says the Lord smelled a sweet aroma, what does it actually indicate? It means that the person who has brought that offering has found favor in God's sight. That to offer that sacrifice, because the word that is translated offering in the Hebrew is a word that comes from another word that means to draw near. If I remember correctly, if I remember my Hebrew a little, it should be korban or kaban, something like that. That word actually means to draw near. So when you are bringing a sacrifice in the Hebrew, what you are doing is that you are doing what? Drawing near. Now when you have drawn near, it's like when you approach a king, it's not enough that you came, you must find favor in his sight. Are you here? This is why when Mordecai was trying to put Esther under pressure, Esther said, no